Okay, looks like we are live here. Hello, climbing world. Eric Hörst here for another episode of the Training Cafe. Let me just see if I can get Instagram running on the feed here. The goal is to be streaming live simultaneously on the Training for Climbing YouTube channel, Training for Climbing Facebook, and Training for Climbing Instagram. And I think we have achieved that here. So with that, we can commence with this episode of the Training Cafe. Now, some folks will be watching this after the fact, and if that's you, well, then I welcome you to join us for a future live episode, because during the live stream, one of the things I'm happy to do, and I love to do, is to interact directly with the viewers and answer some of your training and performance questions. And so if you're watching live, you can type into the comments box. I don't know if I'll see anything typed into Instagram, but I know for sure if you're watching on YouTube and I believe Facebook, if you type into the comments during the live stream, I'll see your comment or your question, and I can get to it a little bit later on in the show. So if you're watching this after the fact, join us for a future live stream. The easiest way to do that is to go to the Training for Climbing YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, click the bell, and that way you'll get notification when I do these live streams, which is every other Monday. That's the goal, at noon Eastern time. So it is Monday at noon Eastern time. So let's get rolling here. Now, the one ritual we have with all of the training cafes is we sip coffee together, or a beverage. But for me, it's noontime. I'm still drinking my coffee. I start at 5 or 6 a.m. and a few cups throughout the morning and midday hours. And so if you have a cup, let's raise it together. Climbers around the world unite in the spirit of climbing. We sip coffee together. One of our rituals that we carry on, I guess, for 5 years now, doing these live streams, something like that. So in any case, the way I do the Training Cafe is I start off with the topic of the day, talk for 5, 10, 15 minutes. So I'm going to do that right now, and then I'll get to your training questions. So again, you can type into the comments box if you have a question on training, nutrition, technique, mental training, recovery, injury, getting older. Climbing as an older guy, which is something I know a lot about. I can answer any of those questions here during these live streams. And if I can't answer a question, I'll be honest about it and try to refer you to a resource that will help you get a good answer to your question. So the topic for today is the power of proprioception and the value of what I long ago termed feel beta. Now, we all know what beta is, the sequence, the holds you grab with your hands and step on with your feet, and, kind of the novel puzzle solution to a climb or to a boulder problem. And we talk about the beta, we talk through beta. We watch other climbers on boulders or routes to get their beta, to see which holds they use and how they position their body. And that's, of course, a very important starting point when you're working a route, is to come up with the beta. But the feel beta is something you can observe another climber. You have to experience it yourself by getting on the route. And so when you're working a sequence, a hard boulder, or a route that's near your limit, where perhaps you're giving it multiple attempts, one of the things you're honing in, after you kind of decipher the hands and the feet, you're trying to decipher the subtle, novel body position of doing the crux sequence optimally. And the feel beta comes in when you can tune into the feelings through your body, from your fingers to your toes and everything in between, and specifically your center of gravity positioning. Because, when you're working a hard move, a delicate move, oftentimes you're unstable or you sense instability. And if you can tune into those feelings of the body, and really kind of determine the key sensations of doing the correct sequence, that is so powerful when you're going for the red point, when you're going for the boulder ascent, to get to the move and know a lot more than just the hands and the feet that you're grabbing, but to know the feeling of doing the move optimally. And that's the feel beta. Now, beginning climbers don't really have feel beta other than very coarse sensations. Think of proprioception, your self-awareness of proprioception. And proprioception is just a scientific term for the feeling of movement, your position in space. And let me just say that we have subconscious level proprioception. Like if you get up and walk across the room, you're not thinking about keeping your balance. Your brain, your subconscious is making all these slight adjustments. If you have to hop over something instantly or make an instinctive movement, your brain's doing it all for you. It's on a subconscious level. Now, if you're doing something novel or unique, whether it's learning a new dance step, learning to swing a golf club for the first time, or learning to do a new climbing movement, you start off with a very coarse understanding of the feeling of the movement. And then with repetition and hopefully with proper execution, you want to be practicing the right way to do a movement, not the wrong way to do a movement. That's why there's value in a climbing coach or a golf swing coach, because if you go to the driving range and hit 1,000 balls with poor technique, you're coding, you're learning, your brain is absorbing and forming schema for the wrong way to do the movement. And so you always want to be practicing the right way to do something. That's, very important to work on hard boulders and routes and projects when you're fresh and can put yourself in the optimal position and feel the movements, which you can do better when you're fresh than when you have extreme fatigue or extreme pump. You're not moving optimally. You're not sensing your movement positions optimally. Your proprioception gets blurred by the pump. And again, a beginning climber, all they can feel sometimes is the pump and something very blatant, like my foot is slipping. They can feel that. But a pro climber or a very experienced climber, it could be an amateur with a decade or more of experience who has climbed a lot, has a much more nuanced, fine-tuned, acute effect or awareness of the quality of their foot placements and the positioning of their body. And, when you're doing a flag move, for instance, when you're flagging a leg to find a balance point, you're sensing your center of gravity moving to a stable position as you flag that foot. And then when you find that perfect stability, then you stop flagging, you hold that move and maybe reach up with your next, hand movement. So that's all the stuff that we're striving for as we become more and more experienced climbers. And so that proprioception, again, for well-learned tasks, it's instinctive, it's subconscious. You get on your warm-up route, you're not thinking about moving your hips and turning your body. It's just happening. That's the beauty of becoming, expert at something, is it does become more subconscious. But when you're pushing your limits or learning a new move or a new skill or activity, it takes intense concentration. It takes hopefully some coaching and some cues to help you click into the optimal movements. And ultimately, with repetition, you gain a finer sensation, understanding of the movement, the feeling of the movement, and that allows you to move more optimally. And, I often talk about, pro climbers they're all really strong, but they also are really efficient. they are able to use and make the most of the power that they have, the strength that they have. Whereas there's newer climbers who might be quite strong, or intermediate climbers who can do amazing things on a hangboard or on a campus board, or if they're doing lifts or force board, their numbers are crazy, but they get on the boulder, they get on the route, and they're not very good given their strength. And that's because they aren't skilled movers, and they are climbing like a gas guzzling Buick rather than a fuel efficient Honda. And the goal, of course, is to be a fuel efficient climber. And so, that's why long term, the best climbers put the complete package together. That yes, they're strong and fit. Yes, they are efficient movers. Yes, they have mental prowess and fortitude and a belief system that's been forged through the crucible of their previous climbing endeavors and struggles and wins. And all of that accumulates as snowballs over many years, and you turn into eventually an Alex Honnold or an Alex Megos or a Brooke Rabatou, or you can name any great climber, because they've spent literally decades putting that puzzle, that complete puzzle, becoming a complete climber. And so that should be your goal. And I've been climbing 48 years. It's still my goal. I am proud of being a fairly complete climber, but I have my weaknesses and things that I'm not so good at, things I don't do very often, like crack climbing. And so when I get on a crack climb, I know how to do it. I've climbed thousands of cracks in my life, but I'm not as efficient. I'm not moving as smoothly. I don't have that fine-tuned proprioception that an Alex Honnold would on a crack. That's for sure. And so this is all stuff that I coach on regularly, whether I'm working with, a newer climber or an elite climber. You need to cover all your bases and try to put the whole puzzle together. And so I did one or two podcasts over the last decade on this topic of proprioception. You could go to my Training for Climbing podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and search through the archive of 100 and some podcasts and find some of those and a lot of other valuable podcasts. If you don't listen to the Training for Climbing podcast, there's really a wealth of information that I'm happy to share with my Training for Climbing community. So I guess with that, I will end Coach Hörst's little lecture for the day, and I'll move on to answering a few training questions. I see a couple are typed in already. If there's anybody who's come in the last few minutes, has a training question, feel free to type it in. I didn't get my notice sent out as early today about the Training Cafe, so I don't know that we kind of cast the net wide enough or early enough to bring in you fish to watch and participate today. But hopefully a lot of folks will gain value from this after the fact as a on-demand Training Cafe stream. So let's get to the first question from Danny, and he's asking about using supercharged collagen, which is the PhysiVantage advanced version of hydrolyzed collagen, which is more of a generic product. The supercharged collagen is a enhanced product designed specifically for climbers. But his question is it better to take it right before a long session or maybe halfway through the long session? And the answer is it wouldn't be a massive difference. I mean, ideally, what the research and kind of the scientific theory behind using the collagen is you do ideally want to consume it before you exercise. But one thing I think you might be misunderstanding, Danny, is the hydrolyzed collagen does not have an acute effect. It's kind of sounded from your question as if you were wondering, like, does it tamp down inflammation or help the joints feel better during the session? And therefore, should you take it in the middle of the session versus the beginning? And in all honesty, the hydrolyzed collagen does not have an acute effect. It's not like taking 2 Advil or some other pain reliever or anti-inflammatory where you consume it, it goes into your system, and then there's a period of effective um, maybe suppression of pain or inflammation. Uh, what the collagen does is and there's dozens of studies, it works. It's one of the biggest selling products on the order of billions of dollars globally every year because hydrolyzed collagen works if you take it every day. And so the value of the hydrolyzed collagen, it has very high concentration of 2 amino acids, glycine and proline, that comprise about 2/3 of your connective tissues throughout your body, whether it's tendons, ligaments, cartilage in your joints, even bones and skin, are 2/3 made up of just 2 amino acids, glycine and proline. And the hydrolyzed collagen or the supercharged collagen gives you a large dose, larger than you could get from any food that you could eat. And so by consuming those 2 amino acids by way of the hydrolyzed collagen every single day, you support collagen synthesis throughout your body. Because generally our diet, especially if you're not a big meat eater, is relatively void of those 2 amino acids. Plant-based athletes get very little glycine and proline, which means if you're not giving your body those two building blocks, your body's struggling to repair and remodel your tendons, your ligaments, your joints, which are all on a microscopic level disturbed, disorganized. Even micro tears occur as part of our training, as part of our climbing or any other exercise. And so your body, just like your body's repairing muscles constantly on a day-to-day basis, your body has to repair connective tissues. The muscles are repaired primarily by way of the branched chain amino acids, which is why post-workout, it's beneficial to eat a high protein meal or consume a protein shake. Whey isolate is the optimal protein to consume for muscle recovery because it's very high in those branched chain amino acids that are the ultimate building blocks for muscle recovery and strength gains. But connective tissues, the building blocks are different. They're glycine and proline, at least 2/3. It's a triple helix made up of 3 amino acids, and 2 of them are always glycine and proline, and then a third amino acid can slide in to complete the collagen and allow your body to extrude these microscopic collagen fibrils that, like the core of a rope, align in parallel and over time give you strength. And like the core of a rope, those fibers can break and become disorganized and weakened, which is what happens from loading. And if it happens too much and you don't recover, then you get those acute tears of pulleys or tendinosis, tendinitis, or joint pain, and such. So the whole concept of consuming hydrolyzed collagen is that it's simply a protein-rich food that provides a high dose of glycine and proline. Now, why take it before the workout? Well, it's not because it has an acute effect of tamping down inflammation or healing during the workout. That's not the case. You consume it every day to support a higher rate of collagen synthesis in the body. And there's plenty of studies that show that it does just that. The reason you take it before you work out is your connective tissues. Let's just use fingers since, climbers' fingers are a very stressed and injurious body part. When you load your fingers and the collagen gets disturbed and needs to remodel and rebuild after the workout, it's not getting those nutrients, the glycine and the proline, via blood flow because the connective tissues are virtually avascular. Your muscles have great blood flow. Blood carries the nutrients to your muscles before, during, and after a workout. But connective tissues have very little blood flow. So the way they get their nutrition is through fluid diffusion during loading. So think of how you, if you stick a sponge in a bucket of water and you squeeze the sponge and the water moves in and out of the sponge as you squeeze it. Well, when you load your connective tissues, again, let's just think about the ligaments and tendons in your fingers. There's synovial fluid that bathes those connective tissues. And when you're loading the tendons, the fluid, that synovial fluid, actually moves in and out of the tendons, kind of like that sponge. And it's that fluid movement that carries the nutrients into your body. And so by consuming the hydrolyzed collagen, let's say 30 minutes to an hour before you do your loading, before you do your hangboard workout, before you do your bouldering, before you do your climbing in the gym, by consuming the collagen 30 to 60 minutes before, it goes into your stomach. It is, of course, dissolved and absorbed. And the hydrolyzed collagen is very bioavailable. So it's quickly into your bloodstream, into your serum, circulating throughout your body. And you get a spike in those 2 amino acids in your system. And so you want to be loading your tendons when there is that spike of the glycine and the proline circulating through your body. And your body will therefore preferentially absorb those amino acids, that glycine and proline, that are key for rebuilding connective tissue. It'll be preferentially absorbed by the body part that's being loaded. So if you're loading your fingers, you have that fluid diffusion, you have the movement of those amino acids into those connective tissues. So you're kind of targeting them with the loading. Same thing as if you're rehabbing a knee, an ACL injury, or rehabbing an Achilles tendon, or rehabbing an elbow or a shoulder surgery. You would consume the hydrolyzed collagen, and then you would do your rehab of the shoulder, of the knee, of the Achilles, whatever the injured body part is. And again, by loading that body part, the connective tissues in that body part, you are then preferentially absorbing there as a result of this fluid diffusion that goes on. So it's very fascinating science that was first identified more than a decade ago by Keith Barr from UC Davis. And since then, there's been scientists at the Australian Sports Institute and many elite athlete case studies with NBA players rehabbing their knees, and various athletes and individuals of different ages. The majority of the studies show it works. If you consume the collagen before you load and do it on a daily basis, you're supporting that local collagen synthesis. So again, the supercharged collagen is enhanced with leucine, with vitamin C, with tryptophan, makes it a more complete protein, makes it more bioactive. It's actually based on what was done in some of the research. Whereas if you buy generic hydrolyzed collagen from Amazon or Costco, it is not a complete protein. It does not have vitamin C. It is not leucine enhanced. So you're missing some of the ingredients that actually make it work even better. And so the supercharged collagen that you refer to, of course, is made by PhysiVantage, a brand that I founded 6-7 years ago, and is very evidence-based. So there's a very long answer, but I think an important answer to help people understand more about how hydrolyzed collagen can be of benefit. So it's about feeding the tendons when they're being loaded. That's kind of the bottom line. And then you want to feed them and load them on an almost daily basis. Now, you're not doing severe loading every day, but you could do some low load, some rehab work, some prehab work on your off days from climbing. And so you might only do 3 intense loading sessions a week, which would be bouldering, climbing, hangboarding, and such. And then you might have 3 or 4 days of the week where it's your rest days from intense training, but you still could do some prehab, some rehab, some protective loading, some low load work. Again, every time taking the collagen before you load the body part. And that is the optimal scenario as shown by evidence. Okay, let's get on to another question here, or actually it looks like a comment, or no, it's a question from Marco. Hey, Coach, which routes and sectors did you enjoy the most at Klimnos? And I'll tell you, I had a good trip. It was only 2 weeks. It was too short. I got there, this is back in mid-April, and I was having back issues, and I was on prednisone, which is a powerful anti-inflammatory. So I was not myself my first week, unfortunately. So it was kind of, it was still fun, but the first week I kind of just checked out different sectors every climbing day and was climbing mostly moderates. I don't think I climbed anything over 7A or 7A plus that first week. So it was just more about getting in tune. I admit, I've not climbed on pure TUFA routes before, so that was very novel. Talking about proprioception, I had to really tune into the novel movement of climbing TUFAs or switching from one TUFA to another. It was fun, but like learning a new skill or a new movement, I was very tight the first few sessions. Again, my back was messed up. I was on these drugs that were messing me up physically. And so I made the best of it as I could. Now, the second week I was feeling better. My favorite sector I think I went to the second week was Odyssey, kind of an old school sport crag, overhanging, 15, 20 meter routes mostly, and really enjoyed the climbing there. And I climbed a few routes more like in the 7B to 7C range. And I scouted a couple of 7C pluses, which I'll get on my next trip, whenever that is, to Greece. So had a blast trying to visit a different area most days just to kind of get a lay of the land. Checked out a Secret Garden, which unfortunately it was highly recommended as being a great crag, and it sure looked cool, but it was wet. It was condensed when I was there. So we did a couple of routes that weren't so enjoyable because of the condensation, and then we moved on to a crag that was not condensed. And so yes, I will go back. It's a wonderful climbing area, no doubt about it. It's very beautiful, and met lots of terrific climbers from around the world there that watch the Training Cafe, that listen to the Training for Climbing podcast or my Training for Climbing YouTube channel, or maybe they've read one of my books. And that's always a blast to go to one of these international areas and have the opportunity to meet people from around the world, because we all do share this passion for this incredible activity that we call climbing. Okay, any other questions here before I wrap things up? We've been going about 30 minutes, and so typically I try to get to the 30-minute mark, and if there's a lot of questions, we can go sometimes almost an hour. If there are no additional questions, I am not seeing, at least typed into the YouTube feed, any additional questions at this time. A couple more things here that I just want to pass on. My website is trainingforclimbing.com. If you just spell it out, the words training, FOR, climbing.com. If you go in there, it's a wealth of articles, hundreds of articles that I've written over the last 20 to 30 years on a variety of topics. You can type into the search bar a topic that you're interested in or something that you're dealing with, and you'll come up with some articles for free that you can read and peruse and hopefully glean some useful information. When you come into my website, there'll be a pop-up window. It'll ask for your name and email. If you do that, what you'll get from me is 1 or 2 emails, training content emails per month. Zero spam. I'm not going to share your email address with anybody. It's just a way for me to communicate directly with folks and send out notices like, oh, I have a new podcast that just dropped on, finger training or whatever. So if you want me, to hear from me occasionally via email with some training tips or links, sign up to the email list. And of course, since I talked about the supercharged collagen earlier, if you visit PhysiVantage, that's spelled with a P, like physical, PHYSI, Vantage, PhysiVantage.com. If you're in North America, we sell nutritional products through the website. If you use checkout code podcast15 or friends15, you can get 15% off any full-priced nutrition. If you're in Europe, unfortunately, we can't ship to Europe. We do have pro climbers in Europe who use our products, but the only way you can acquire them in Europe is through the Epic TV shop. So if you're a European climber, visit the Epic TV shop. You can get our supercharged collagen, our Sendurex pre-workout, pre-climb performance drink, our electrolytes, which are called Flow, our pre-workout supplement, which is like a caffeine and theanine blend, which is pretty awesome. That's called Crush, and you can get that through the Epic TV shop or bananafingers.com, by the way. Okay, so appreciate all of you guys tuning in, and strong crusher ladies as well. Hopefully see you in a couple of weeks when we do this all over again. Until next time, be safe, be strong, and climb on.